And we are back with another episode of the Julius Files. I am your host, Jasan Julius, and today I want to talk a little bit about personal development. I don't know that I'm any smarter than I was years ago, but I'm a little wiser, and a lot of this has been through just painful lessons learned in general. But there have been some things that I have, through soul searching and through keeping myself open to others people's perspective, that I have come to realize that have added to my life in general. So I want to share them with you, and I'll run through them real quick, and then I'll attempt to unpack them a little bit. So 7 personal development strategies, and I think I might even throw a number 8 in there. Number 1, have little to no expectations of others. Number 2, do more of what you want. Number 3, make a list of what feeds you and what bleeds you. Number 4, purposely educate yourself on human nature and what makes you tick. Number 5, develop and practice high character. Number 6, take more action. Number 7, be willing to learn and hear and listen to the perspective of others. And because I want to throw it in there, number 8 is really general, but be grateful. And like my personal, if you're not grateful AF, you're not getting it, and you're probably not grateful enough. If you come to things with an attitude of gratitude, you will take more of a, things are not happening to you, they're happening for you. And then the next level is things are happening because of you. But the point is, always be looking for that lesson of gratitude, because at the end of the day, we are inundated with so many negative things, and the positivity that comes with the gratitude radiates, and it is appreciated by anybody and everybody you're around. Okay, so let's unpack these a little bit so that I can give a little bit of context and explanation. Number 1, have little to no expectation of others. What I'm getting at is that for a personal development strategy, you really want to live and function in the highest vibration possible. So the more expectation that you put on others, the more you're just going to be disappointed, because other people are going to let you down. Honestly, the only person that you have control of is yourself. So put more expectations on yourself. Force yourself to rise to a higher level of being and existence, because you can hold yourself accountable, but holding others accountable is tough. Anybody in entrepreneurship knows holding other people accountable is one of the toughest parts of building a business and scaling. So the reality is, the less expectations that you have of others, the less disappointment you're setting yourself up for. Number 2, do more of what you want. What I'm getting at is that whether it's like, if you do more of what you have to do, it's because of responsibilities that you've created. But if you spend your entire life just doing the grind of just, I gotta do what I have to do, I'm not able to do what I want to do, you're not celebrating those little wins. You're not celebrating the milestones. You're not taking time to just separate yourself from all of the stresses and anxieties of life. And obviously, even if you're an entrepreneur in business, I mean, that is immense pressure. But the point is, taking time to do the things that you want to do is like, that's what feeds your soul. And it was a big realization that it just, I'm big about reflecting, and I go back and I look at a major failure in my life, and that was with my ex-wife, and she was with me for the first half of the development of my business, and she really bought into what I was trying to do, but I did not separate and take enough time to go do things that I wanted to do, to go do things that we wanted to do, to go do things that she wanted to do. And it just seemed like a never ending. I could tell her looking at me, he's always going to do what's necessary. He's always going to do what he needs to do. and she never saw the light at the end of the tunnel where we got to the point where we started to do the things that we wanted to do, that I look back and realized the waiting to do things that you wanted to do was not necessary. Now, maybe you got to wait depending on the cost to do big things, but that does not mean that you can't find the little things and do the little things just simply because you want to unplug and do something that you want to do. And in the moment, it's a de-stressor, and it's making sure that you are truly being present and enjoying those moments in life. And in my reflection, I look back and I'm like, I might have been able to save my marriage had I made sure that I just focused a certain piece on doing things that we wanted to do, because all she saw us doing was making sacrifices and doing what we needed to do just to live to fight another day. And the reality is, you get down into a year, and if you're in business, it is tough. And if you create a lot of responsibilities in life, it's tough. But that is no excuse on 365 days in a year not to be able to plan a couple days here and there where you legitimately go do something that you want to do, and it doesn't have to cost any money. Number 3, make a list of what feeds you and what bleeds you. This is really self-explanatory, but what I'm getting at is that if you truly sit down and make that list, at least you are aware. You have the opportunity to create boundaries. You have the ability to say, I'm not going to allow this situation, or I'm not going to allow this individual to get into my space because they bleed me. And the more time you spend doing the things that feed you, the more healthy you will be mentally and physically, the better you will be for the other people around you. And you're going to get to a place in your life where you do finally understand that time is precious, your mental and physical health is precious, and it does not matter if somebody means a lot to you. If they are a source of bleeding you, cut them out. And you're going to have to make those hard decisions. But once you get to the other side, you will feel more of a sense of peace and calmness, because you literally recognize that whether you cared about them or not, they were somebody that was just there to take from you, just there to bleed you, and it was not worth your time, effort, or energy. And you're literally make the list so that you at least are aware of what feeds you and what bleeds you, and then you can decide what things to cut out. Number 4, purposely educate yourself on human nature and what makes you tick. What I'm getting at is that, okay, so here are some pieces of human nature. It is human nature to judge. It is human nature to be tribal. It is human nature to compare, and it is human nature to take for granted. If you understand this mentally, you can combat it, because to judge people, like, that's negative, that's bleeding, that's draining. To compare yourself to others, that's self-defeating. You're not walking in their shoes. You didn't come up under their circumstances. You didn't live their life. You don't know everything that is actually going on in their life. There's just, like, it's not an apples to apples comparison. You're not being fair to yourself. And again, this is about quality of life itself, which comes back to mental and physical wellness. So spending your time trying to compare yourself to the life that somebody else lives, you don't know the background. You don't know the sacrifices they made. You don't know the actions they took. You don't know anything about them that, when I say anything, you're going to be like, well, yeah, but I know my brother. Yeah, but you don't know what's going on inside your brother's head. You might think that you know people, and I'm not saying that you can't have great relationships with people, but the tendency to compare is the keeping up with the Joneses. You're comparing yourself to the guy next door, and you don't know dick about how he got into the house living beside you, and comparing yourself to him and trying to compete and keep up with that, it's a losing proposition. Compare yourself today to your yesterday. Compare yourself tomorrow and your best tomorrow to your best today. Always keep yourself pushing, but I mean, don't compare yourself to others. And man, I just think that too many people take too much for granted. One, not all relationships last forever, but they do last for a time, and they might last for longer if you didn't take them for granted. Because, like, I have some really good friendships. I go out of my way, at a minimum, to at least reach out to these people once every 90 days. Why? Because as a relationship, I don't want to take them for granted. Now, true friends, like, you could contact them a year later and it would be as if you saw them yesterday. That is real, true friendship. But the point is, there are many relationships that go sour just simply because they're taken for granted, and you shouldn't take time for granted. You should not take the opportunities that you have chose to pursue for granted. You shouldn't take life for granted. You shouldn't even take the breath you're drawing right at this moment for granted. Number 5, and this was a big one as far as, like, I just have a deep love. Like, the man is like it's a father figure thing to me, but my mentor. And one of the biggest things that he impressed upon me through these 15 years worth of mentorship, high character. High character has a lot to doing what is right. Even if it's painful or inconvenient for you, the right thing is still the right thing. And when I come back to my core values of respect, rapport, reputation, your high character, how you operate and function in your world and in the world, is going to be a big determinator on how many people are going to come to your rescue when you fall and you need somebody to help you up. So what is high character? I've got a list here. It's being trustworthy. It's being honest. And funny enough, we had a transformer got hit beside one of my operations, and it took the operation out. And I had to call my HVAC guy in, and this dude's been doing work for me for over a decade. And he was like, do you want to hear the honest answer, or do you want to hear the answer with integrity? And I was like, well, I mean, obviously I want to hear both. And he goes, well, the honest answer is the motor failed. It looks like faulty wiring. And he goes, and I could have left it at that, but integrity is, it looks like one of my guys wired it wrong way back when it was installed, and I own that, and I'm going to take care of it. That's integrity, because you can give an honest answer, and I'm a big believer in, and I'm like, I detest lying, but there is lying by omission, and I'm not going to deny that I'm probably as guilty as the next, because I think that I'm a pretty, sometimes I can be abrasive because I'm real big about telling the truth. But there are times when it's somebody that I care about that I'll pull my punches, and it's not, I hate looking at it as lying, but the reality is, if you're omitting information, you are in fact lying. And I try and do it as little as possible, but most of the time when I do it, I'm looking at it as useless or pointless information, even if it is being omitted. And I'm trying to not hurt an individual. But the point is, being honest and trustworthy, it is about integrity, and it is about not lying. So a couple other words: accountability, holding yourself accountable, being respectful, because I believe that, like, if you want respect from others, you have to give respect to others. And the last one that I've got written down, that, like, I understood this a long time ago, and it really came back to, like, when I came to Kokomo, my grandfather got me a job at Chrysler. And at that time, my grandfather had over 40 years in at Chrysler. So, and his brother had worked at Chrysler as well, and he had already put in 30 years and he'd retired. But when I entered the plant, I knew that the Julius name was a very highly respected name. So my first thing was, like, do no harm to the Julius name in the community inside of that plant, because my grandfather had literally spent a lifetime building up rapport and respect and a reputation around that name. And that really comes back to your word is your bond. And There was a time where, like, you could shake somebody's hand and give them your word, and that was the contract. And then obviously we got into low character individuals that they would break their word and they would shake somebody's hand and then stab them behind the back. And that's how we got into all of these crazy contracts and all of the lawyers that have just got to lawyer things to death. You want to build a good reputation, you build a reputation where you have people saying the man's good for his word. That's a great starting point in life. Do what you say you are going to do. Be a man of your word. Operate in high character, because the reality is that we're all going to fail at some point in life. And the higher character you operate at, the better your name is, the more trusted your word is, and the more people are going to be willing to help you and back you and pull you out of the rut or the pothole that you just happen to find yourself getting tripped up on. Okay, number 6, take more action. I've mentioned this before in a different podcast that it frustrates me that people are all about dreaming and all about learning, and then they don't act. And I'm like, there is no point dreaming and there is no point learning if you're not going to move it to doing. Like, if you have no intention of action, don't worry about learning anything. It's like it's wasted effort. If you're not going to take the knowledge you obtain and actually turn it into something, to chasing or developing a vision or chasing a dream, like, what is the point? Wisdom comes through doing, learning, failing, iterating, getting up and trying again. Take more action in life. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's going to be messy. But the point is, so many people fail to act, and then they get later on in life and they have nothing but regret to look back on, because they spent so much time learning and so much time dreaming and so much time waiting for the stars to align that they never take action. So they never get to the fulfillment. They never actually realized the dream. They never actually chased the vision and reaped the rewards from actually trying to build something. Take more action in life, and you will find that it's a life worth living. It's a lot more fulfilling. Okay, number 7, and I mean, this just comes back to be more willing to hear and find others' perspective. And I just cannot stress it enough. You just can't live your life rigidly. Things change. The world changes. Change your perspective, change your life. Be more willing to allow your perspective to be changed, and your life will change. And for the better, obviously. I'm not saying, like, again, my core principles in life: respect, rapport, reputation, high character is a big thing. Nobody is going to come change my perspective and somehow convince me that I would get further down the road if I practiced low character and I stabbed people in the back and I lied to people. I mean, I'm not talking about that kind of perspective change. You are a product of your experiences in life. You are a product of the town you grew up in. You are a product of the people that you surrounded yourself with in your childhood that might not necessarily have been of your control or of your choosing. But generally, when you come into adulthood, you have a preconceived notion about how the world should be. All of the perspective you have are from adults that have said, this is my perspective. Going into life in adulthood and thinking that you're just supposed to carry on that perspective, that it should never change, like you are tying both hands behind your back as you enter adulthood and then expecting yourself to be able to succeed in life. I promise you, you will not be the same person at 30 years old that you were at 20 years old. You will not be the same person at 50 years old that you were at 30 years old, because life's going to teach you those lessons one way or the other. I'm just saying, if you open yourself to other people's perspectives, to insight through lenses that other people have viewed life, you have a bigger, broader, deeper understanding of where other people are coming from, because you can learn something from everybody. And if you want to live a full, rich, vibrant life, it's not even about empathy, but it is about understanding that, even like, I hate politics, but the point is, where do a lot of the politics come from? Because you got all of these people that are representative from different states that have grown up in different environments, all going to the Capitol, and they have their own perspectives. Of course, that's what I hate politics for. Then you get into what pharmaceutical company or what major money has bought them off and told them what their perspective is going to be, and then it becomes about power. But I digress. Life and the 7 billion people all have their own perspective, because they all had their own influences as they were growing up and entering the world and coming into adulthood. And you should always be willing to at least hear somebody else's perspective. You should always be open to letting somebody else's perspective have an impact on you, because you never know when somebody's perspective is going to be so articulated that it literally has a profound effect on your being and how you view life as a whole. And it will move you to a higher plane of understanding, of awareness, of a higher vibration that will only feed more of a life that you actually want to live. I cannot express enough. Please be malleable. Don't be rigid. Always be open to other people's perspectives. Always be willing to at least listen and hear. And then it's an accept or reject. You either accept it and you're willing to let it have an effect on your perspective, or you just simply reject it and move on. But at least be open to hearing it. All right. I'm going to wrap up my pod. Questions, comments, snide remarks, I'm open to them. Bring them to me. If you know somebody that needs to hear this, please share the show. All right. Till next time, have a good night.